You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. Before I get into anything, I have some news that I need to report. This week will mark the last week ever of the Jacob Valk Show. In a very short period of time, I will be starting a new job. And there are only so many hours in the day. So, sadly, this podcast will come to an end on Friday. I'm not going to have any pomp and circumstance. At most, at the end of the show, it'll be a retrospective on the totality of this show. But I just want to say this right off the top. Thank you so much for sticking with me for over 2 years. You know, a lot of podcasts flame out very quickly. And the main reason for that is lack of interest. It's lack of interest from the listeners, and it's lack of interest from the host. You know, we all know that without listeners, you're not going to make it very far, but a lot of people start podcasts and then they lose their passion for it very quickly. Well, I'm proud to say that never happened for me. And lack of interest from the listeners is something that I never had to worry about. 5,000 YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm sad that I'm ending the podcast. Had a lot of fun with it. Loved doing it, but at the end of the day, all good things must come to an end. And I'll say this also. Some people, when they're nearing the end of a job, lose their drive for it. They just half-ass it all the way to the end. I'm not going to do that here. I promise you, I'm going to do my best to make sure that this is the best week ever in the history of this podcast. And I don't think there's any better way to start this week off than with me being right. You remember when I said that this college basketball field was wide open and I really wasn't in love with any of the big teams? I don't think I've ever had anything age as perfectly as that statement. For the first time ever in the AP poll era, so we're talking 48-49 to the present day, the top 6 teams all lost on the same day. Gonzaga, Arizona, Auburn, Purdue, Kansas, and Kentucky all lost. Number 9, Texas Tech also lost. So for the first time ever, 7 top 10 teams lost in the same day. One excuse that I heard from people was all these games were on the road. Right, because it's an unreasonable ask for Purdue to go into East Lansing and beat a good, not great MSU team. It's unreasonable for me to expect Texas Tech to go into TCU and beat a good, not great Horned Frogs team. I don't care where the game is. Arizona should destroy Colorado. The Buffaloes aren't that good. Baylor's shorthanded. Kansas should have beaten them. Gonzaga's the number 1 team in the nation. They should beat St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's is a really good team, but that's a game that Gonzaga should win. I don't want to hear anyone making excuses for these schools. The reality is, there is no great team in college basketball this year. When we look back at the upcoming big dance, let's say 3 months from now, not 3 years, 30 years, whatever, 3 months from now, I don't care who wins it. We are going to look back at that winner and say that is one of the worst winners of March Madness we've ever had. I mean, I'm trying to think of some bad winners that we've had recently. UConn in 2011? They weren't that great. That was a weird tournament. Who saw Butler coming? Who saw Jimmer Fredette coming? Arizona in 97? They weren't that great. Danny and the Miracles? Yeah, that was pretty bad. 88 was pretty bad. Villanova? In 85? The 8th seed knocking off Georgetown? The lowest seed to ever win March Madness? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Whoever wins March Madness this year is going to be mentioned in the same breath as those teams. Not the dominant teams like the mid-2000s Gators or any of Jay Wright's Nova teams or any of Coach K's Duke teams or any of John Wooden's UCLA teams. No, I don't care who wins it. This is a disastrous year for college basketball. In fact, I'll even go a step further. It wouldn't surprise me if a 9 seed or a 10 seed or some school that just comes out of nowhere that we don't see coming wins the whole thing. It wouldn't surprise me if there was another 16-1 upset. It wouldn't surprise me if a 1 seed was eliminated in the second round. It wouldn't surprise me if there were no 1 teams in the Final Four. Maybe even the Elite 8. That's how bad these teams are this year. There is no team in the nation that scares me. You know how every year we hear the debate, could the best college basketball team knock off the worst NBA team? There's a reason you haven't heard that this year. The worst NBA team right now is the Orlando Magic. The best team in the nation, according to the AP, is still Gonzaga. The Magic would destroy Gonzaga. It wouldn't even be a contest. Let me tell you, March Madness, while I'll obviously get into it, and everyone gets into it, I don't think it has much juice this year as it's had in years past. There's just no great team. There are going to be some teams that bubble up to the top. Of course there are. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not going to be that good. I don't care who you think is going to win it all. Gonzaga, Arizona, Baylor, Duke, Auburn. None of these teams are that good. Here's how you know that none of these teams are that good. Gonzaga and Arizona lost on Saturday, but are still 1-2. There was no team worthy of taking over the 1 spot or the 2 spot. Even though both those teams lost. Even though the top 6 teams lost. Even though 7 top 10 teams lost. No team was worthy of taking over the 1 and 2 spots. That is insane. That does not happen. No team that was in the top 10 last week fell out of the top 12. These teams that really aren't that good, that are vulnerable, that are not dominant in any way, shape, or form, are being propped up because there's no great team ready to take over. You know, it's kind of funny. One of the metrics that the selection committee looks at when deciding the 68 teams are big wins. Is there really a team this year that you'd point to and say, oh my God, I can't believe that team lost? Yeah, great, congratulations. Colorado beat Arizona. Arizona is not that great this year. Great offense, terrible defense. Is it really that impressive that MSU knocked off Purdue? Come on, Purdue's not that good this year. Great offense, terrible defense. All of these teams are capable of getting knocked off during any given day in the tournament. I understand that's the beauty of March. Any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. But there are some teams that you have a tough time visualizing losing. There's no team this year that would knock my socks off if they lost. These are bad teams. It's going to be really hard for me to fill out a bracket. I think there are going to be upsets galore. Don't get too invested in your bracket. Have fun filling it out, but realize that you're probably going to throw it out come the second day of the tournament. And yeah, a lot of people are going to watch these games. Of course they are. It's March Madness. But realize, these aren't great teams you're watching. Yeah, have fun watching the games. enjoy yourself, but, I wouldn't get too invested in these games. It's just hard for me to get into games where there really aren't any good teams playing. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And I'll start with a really interesting statement from Kyler Murray's agent, Eric Burkhart. Burkhart released this statement, in essence, putting the Cardinals on notice. Like, hey, you need to re-sign this guy. He wants the Cardinals to commit to Murray. He wants them to pay him sooner rather than later. And he is really putting the Cardinals on notice here. There is no trade request in the statement. In fact, one thing that's very clear is that Murray is devoted to the Cardinals. Like, the statement goes out of its way to say that. He wants to win a Super Bowl for the Cardinals. And I'll tell you, I believe that. I believe that 100%. Like, Kyler Murray very easily could have said, no, I don't want to go to the Cardinals. I'm going to play baseball. Either watch me play for the Athletics or trade me somewhere else. Or maybe he could have just had his heart set on baseball all throughout. Instead, none of that happened. Murray devoted himself to the Cardinals, went into a really tough spot, an organization that was in flux, that hired an unproven college head coach, someone who did a terrible job at Texas Tech. And now in 3 years, the Cardinals are perennial playoff contenders, right? Yeah, they haven't won a playoff game in the Kyler Murray era, but I think it's safe to say they'll be back in the playoffs next year. And now that Murray got those first playoff game jitters out of the way, who knows what can happen, right? I understand, that Joe Burrow didn't have those, and it's okay to want your quarterback to hit the ground running in the playoffs. But not every quarterback does. And that's okay. The reality is, everyone is built differently. Peyton Manning's first 3 playoff games, he was dreadful. Lost every one of them. Eli Manning's first 2 playoff games, he wasn't that good. He lost both of them. Yeah, sometimes you find a Burrow or a Mahomes or a Josh Allen that hits the ground running. But anyone who tells you that Kyler Murray can't win a playoff game and you're never going to win anything with him is foolish. The reality is the Arizona Cardinals need to move heaven and earth to re-sign Murray. I understand that you want him for the full length of his rookie contract, and that's reasonable. It's okay to want that. The thing is, though, there are some quarterbacks that you need to pay sooner rather than later. 6 first-round quarterbacks have signed a long-term deal before their 4th NFL season in the past decade. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and Ryan Tannehill. Thank you, Adam Schefter. Kyler Murray is just as good, if not better, than some of those guys. And I'm not talking now. I'm talking going into their fourth seasons. Kyler Murray is better than Jared Goff was entering his fourth season, and better than Ryan Tannehill was entering his fourth season. So yeah, once that dam breaks, you need to follow it. Jamal Adams wanted his payday right away. When he didn't get it, he forced his way to the Seahawks. Now, it was the right decision for the Jets to trade Adams. There's no question about that. But there's a difference, though. The Jets traded Adams because they didn't want to invest that much money into a strong safety. Every team in the NFL wants to invest money into their quarterback. Think about it. If you invest a ton of money into a quarterback, it means you have your franchise quarterback. It doesn't always work out. There's no question. But I think Bills and Chiefs fans rest easy at night knowing that they have their franchise quarterbacks locked up long term. I mean, there's no question that when Kyler Murray signs his big boy contract, it's not an if, it's when. He's going to continue being great. He's going to make more Pro Bowls. He's going to be in the playoffs again. He's going to win a playoff game. He may even win an MVP at some point. Kyler Murray does have the Cardinals over a barrel a little bit. If the Cardinals move on from Murray, and I'm not saying they will, but if they do, they're screwed. So the Cardinals need to pay Kyler Murray. On the other hand, do they want to be in a position where they're in essence being bullied into giving someone a ton of money? See, what was the purpose of this statement? Was it to let people know how great Kyler Murray is? I think every NFL fan knows how great Kyler Murray is. Was it to turn the fans against the organization? See, if you're going to go that route, realize there may be no coming back. Yes, Cardinals fans would turn on management if they didn't sign Murray, but you don't need to give them more ammunition. This is going to end in three ways. Either this motivates the Cardinals to pay Murray, this does nothing to change the Cardinals' minds, or they say, we're not going to take this. You're not going to turn our fans against us. We'll pay you when we're good and ready, and if you don't like it, we're going to trade you. I just don't see the reason for this statement. That's the thing. Did the Cardinals say to Burkhardt that they're not going to pay Murray? That they're not going to give him a big boy contract? If they did, okay, but we don't know that one way or the other. I mean, the thing is, if the Cardinals were to move on from Kyler Murray, every team in the NFL just about would be interested. In fact, I'll go a step further. if I'm Joe Douglas, I'm open to trading Zach Wilson, the 4th overall pick, and the 10th overall pick for Kyler Murray. And I'm going all in free agency. And I am saying this is our year to make the jump. As good as I think Zach Wilson will be, and I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league for a long time. I love Zach Wilson. If you have the opportunity to get Kyler Murray, a proven young quarterback with no blemishes whatsoever, you've got to do it. The Jaguars should do it. The Bears should do it. The Patriots should do it. The Niners should do it. Although the Cardinals would never trade Murray within the division. Every team that even has a 1% question at quarterback should be willing to mortgage the farm for Kyler Murray. The only teams that shouldn't are the Bills, the Bengals, maybe the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's injury does scare me a little bit. That could be the precursor of something big. The Chiefs, the Broncos, the Cowboys, and the Rams. That's it. Only 7 teams in the NFL would not be interested in Kyler Murray. So that's 3/4 of the league that you'd have interested in Kyler Murray. Do I think the Cardinals will trade Murray? No. Do I think he will get a big boy contract to stay in the desert? Yes. But was this statement necessary from Burkhardt? I don't know. If it reaches a tipping point, I am going to bang my fist on the table and say that Kyler Murray should be a Jet. I love Zach Wilson. I really, really do. But Kyler Murray is better than him. Zach Wilson may become an elite quarterback in this league. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, but Kyler Murray is there right now. And I would rather take the sure thing than the question mark. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Moving on now to a report from Jay Morrison of The Athletic that said that the Bengals are expected to cut Trey Waynes. And this is the right decision. Waynes is easily the biggest free agency bust in Bengals history. I remember there was a time I wanted Waynes on the Jets. I'm glad they didn't get him. The Bengals ended up with him. And he didn't play at all in 2020. Only played in 5 games in 2021. Had a 57.2 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Didn't play at all in the postseason. Cutting him would save the Bengals just under $11 million. I understand that the Bengals are in a great position with the salary cap, but there's no point in putting bad money before good. This is a stacked cornerback class in free agency. You've got guys like J.C. Jackson, DJ Reed, Casey Hayward, and Rasul Douglas available. A lot of players are going to line up to go to the Bengals. They were just in the Super Bowl, and they're going to want to play with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and all those guys. So yeah, cut Trey Waynes, save some money, and go out and sign a big cornerback in free agency. Just not J.C. Jackson, because I really want him on the Jets. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Valk talk. No, it's not about the lockout. Although it does seem like we're reaching a tipping point one way or the other. It's about Derek Jeter leaving the Marlins. Jeter's stepping down as CEO. He's going to sell his stake in the franchise. He is done with the Marlins. Now, the reason for this is that Jeter's and Bruce Sherman's vision for the Marlins no longer aligned. Sherman is the chairman and principal owner of the Marlins. It's fair to assume that Jeter wanted to put his foot on the gas. He was done rebuilding, and he wanted to spend more money. Before the lockout, the Marlins were aggressive. They signed Avisail Garcia. They traded for Jacob Stallings. They traded for Joey Wendell. They locked up Sandy Alcantara long term. They signed Miguel Rojas to an extension. This is no longer the Marlins team that gave away Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton. This is a Marlins team that's been rebuilding for a while, has a pitching staff that anyone would kill for, and is ready to try to make a go at things. I mean, you may think that's far-fetched, but think about this pitching staff. Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, Pablo Lopez, Zach Thompson, and Jesus Luzardo. Think about the lineup that the Marlins are going to put out there. Stallings, Jesus Aguilar, Jazz Chisholm, Miguel Rojas, Brian Anderson, Avisail Garcia, probably Garrett Cooper at DH. Yeah, it's incomplete. You do need some more outfielders. And yes, I'm pretty sure there will be a DH in both leagues in the coming season and in the future. I just think the Marlins need a couple more outfielders. So they can go out and sign guys like Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, and or Chris Bryant. The Marlins do have the money to do that. Don't let them tell you that they don't. If Sherman wasn't willing to do that, I don't blame Jeter for saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. He got the Marlins through a really bad spot. After the death of Jose Fernandez, Jeter came in, traded everyone, rebuilt the farm system, did it controversially, ticked off a lot of people, but hey, the Marlins are in a better place now than they were before Jeter came in. There's no question about that. If you look at the Marlins' records, it's not a good optic for Jeter, but if you use your noodle and go a little more in depth, you can't deny that Derek Jeter did some really good things for the Marlins and really pointed that team in the right direction. I'm not saying they would have made the playoffs this year, maybe they wouldn't have, but the Phillies aren't world beaters. The Nationals aren't world beaters. The Mets got a lot better, there's no question about that, and the Braves won the World Series. But it wouldn't have surprised me if the Marlins won like 75 or 80 games. If they had continued adding talent. Now that they're seemingly reverting back to the Jeffrey Lorio way of doing things, it's tough sledding yet again for the Marlins. I am not optimistic about their future. As for Jeter, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does next. Would it surprise anyone if he went to the Yankees? Think about it. Brian Cashman's contract is up after this coming season. And yes, I think there will be some form of a season this year. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I think there will be some form of a season. Let's say Hal Steinbrenner sells Jeter like a 1% portion of the Yankees. And then when Cashman's contract is up, Steinbrenner says to Jeter, here you go. Here are the keys to the Yankees. Lead us to another World Series, like you did as a player. Maybe it won't happen exactly like that, but I think Jeter will be involved with the Yankees again. It was always weird to have Jeter involved in baseball, not with the Yankees. Now that he's, for lack of a better term, a free agent, the Yankees should engender some goodwill and bring Jeter back. The thing is, though, he's not going to take just a token role. He's going to want real input into the team. And I have no problem giving that to him. I mean, Jeter did some good things with the Marlins. Rebuilt that farm system. Added some great young pitching. I'll take him over Brian Cashman right now. If the Yankees were to fire Brian Cashman right now and bring Derek Jeter in, I'd have no problem with that. I mean, the dream for a while, and it was always a dream, it was never going to happen, but the dream for a while for Yankees fans was Jeter being manager, Mariano being bullpen coach, Andy Pettitte being pitching coach, Jorge Posada being bench coach, and Bernie Williams being hitting coach. Obviously, it was never going to happen, but that was the dream for a while. Now there's a real chance for Jeter to be involved with the Yankees again. Look, he wanted to own a baseball team. And he wanted real input into that team. In 2017, the Yankees weren't in a position to do that. They were playing great baseball. The baby boomers were coming up. They didn't want to rock the boat. Now, the boat needs to be rocked. Bring Derek Jeter in. Sell him part of the team. It only needs to be like 1%. I have no problem with that. But give Jeter a significant say over baseball operations. This guy knows talent. Lord knows the Yankees need someone capable of identifying talent, because Brian Cashman doesn't know how to do that anymore. There were a couple deaths in the sports world that I really want to talk about. The first one is Lionel Little Train James. He died on Friday at the age of 59. Little Train was an incredibly easy player to root for. Was not a big guy, was only 5'6", 171 pounds. A lot of people doubted him, but he was a high-intensity player, gave his all on every play, was willing to do everything. Run the ball, catch the ball, return kicks, return punts. This guy could do it all. He got the nickname Little Train because of his high motor and because he was a short guy, only 5'6". In essence, he was the little engine that could. He went to Auburn, had a good run there, but was playing behind Bo Jackson. So there's only so much of an impact that you can make. The Chargers took him in the 5th round of the 84 NFL draft. And it took him a year, but he found his niche. In 1985, the Chargers had a committee approach at running back. Tim Spencer was the bulldozer. Gary Anderson was the shifty, elusive back. And Lionel James was the big play threat out of the backfield to catch passes. James had an incredible year in 85. Outplayed both Spencer and Anderson. He set the NFL record for all-purpose yards in a season with 2,535. That record was broken in 2000 by Derek Mason. It's now the 4th highest total in NFL history. James had 86 catches for 1,027 yards. Those 1,027 yards marked the first time in NFL history that a running back broke the 1,000-yard barrier. He led the AFC in receptions with 86. He was insane. It looked like he was on his way to great things. But then the injury bug bit him. He had an ankle injury in 1986. He missed 9 games. In 87, Al Saunders, who took over for Don Coryell midway through the 86 season, decided to use James as a true wide receiver rather than a running back. And James was good. He had 41 catches for 593 yards, but wasn't the game wrecker that he was in 85. In 88, James had a hip flexor. He played through it, but was a shell of his former self. He was waived before the 89 season started. Tried to catch on with the Chiefs, but he didn't pass his physical. But he was an explosive player, make no mistake about it. It took Marshall Faulk in 1999 to break his record for most receiving yards by a running back. And on the Chargers' 40th anniversary team, James was named their kick returner. That was a very well-deserved honor. for their 50th anniversary team, he should have been there over Speedy Duncan. All due respect to Duncan, really good player, but James was better. It should have been James and Darren Sproles for the 50th anniversary team. The second guy who died is Dick Versace. He also died on Friday at the age of 81. Dick Versace is one of the best head coaches in Bradley Braves history. He did things for that school that very few other people could. I mean, this is Bradley we're talking about. Not a program like UNC or Kansas or UCLA. This is Bradley, but Versace turned them into a pretty good team. He had bounced around for a while before landing at Bradley in 1978. In his second year with the Braves, they made their first NCAA tournament since 1955. The Braves came very close to beating Texas A&M, but the Aggies won 55-53. In 1982, Bradley won the regular season title in the Missouri Valley Conference, but Tulsa won the conference tournament. Bradley got snubbed by the committee. They had to settle for an NIT berth. Bradley ran roughshod all throughout that tournament. They beat Purdue in the title game to win the NIT. In 1986, the Braves ran roughshod through the Missouri Valley Conference. They won the regular season title again. Tulsa won the conference tournament, but the committee didn't snub Bradley this time. Led by players like Hershey Hawkins and Jim Less, who would go on to coach Bradley, the Braves made the big dance. They beat UTEP in the first round, but lost to Louisville in the second round. No shame in losing to the national champions, right? Versace made the jump to the NBA after that. He joined the Pistons as an assistant coach. The Pistons were on their way to doing great things, obviously, but Versace left midway through the 88-89 season to take over the Indiana Pacers. In doing so, he became the first American of Puerto Rican descent to be an NBA head coach. In Versace's only full year as Pacers head coach, 89-90, they made the playoffs. Reggie Miller made his first All-Star team, but they got swept by the Pistons in the first round. It's a shame that both these people were lost to history. James was a really explosive player. Dick Versace was a good head coach. May they both rest in peace. You will get a New York Islanders show tonight, and you will get regular episodes of the Jacob Valk show every afternoon this week. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.